welcome to the 100% Security Initiative. Today, we are joined by Sister Denise Laurence.
Thank you, and good evening and Om Shanti to everyone. So this is the subject of going beyond security in relationships, and I think that there's always a difference between what you have and what you feel you have. Let us take a look at the first level of relationship, which is a relationship with yourself. And I think that that is the most important one. I think the problem of life today is that people are split off from the self. And in spiritual practice, we give a lot of attention to connecting with the self so that this splitting off is reduced and ultimately eliminated. And whenever you come in relationship with anyone or any place or any group, you will always take a part of yourself and adjust it to the other person or people or place or culture. And that part of yourself is, in a way, no longer with you. And it's very useful to be able to adapt and adjust oneself. But we have to put limits on how far you do that, because if you do it fully and completely, then you lose yourself. And if you lose yourself, then you also lose your power, and you are no longer the master of yourself, but you are always under the influence of external forces and sources, and so many things are there in the external. How did this happen is mostly because there is a difference between operating from the inside and operating from the outside. So most people operate from the outside, and when you operate from the outside, that means that you are totally engaged and involved in sense perception. So that means your mind is filled with what you can see, what you hear, what people are doing, saying, how they think about you. If they like you, you feel good. If they don't like you, you don't feel good. They put you up, they put you down, and you become very much a puppet in other people's hands without necessarily realizing it. You know how much people are concerned about their image and their reputation, and how they are perceived, and they very much feel that their sense of identity is absolutely derived from this. And that is effectively a relationship where you are in relationship with anything and everything that is on the outside, but that your inner self, your inner positioning, has effectively given away power to the outside. And that's a very insecure situation to be in, because the outside is fluctuating all the time. It is said the most fickle thing is public opinion. So if your sense of self depends on what any individual or group of individuals think about you, then they have power over you and they can decide how you feel. And this is what happens very much with the media. How many people are damaged by social media because they have really given away their power to it and come totally under its influence, to the point where it is now being spoken about as an addiction. But usually people are very much influenced by close personal relationships. I think the most powerful relationships are your parents, your educators, and your religious authorities or religious leaders. So when you don't realize this, you have no gateways, no barriers to position between yourself and these very powerful influences, and they usually do whatever they can to make sure that they have a very powerful influence over you. And the reason they do this is so that you can be fully and completely integrated and absorbed into the culture that you were born into. And so your thinking, your feeling, your mentality, your social conscience, your attitudes, your prejudices, your taste, your likes and dislikes, your choice of what you will do, and your motivations, all of this is dictated by these external forces. And they are very strong, but they are not necessarily reliable. And since we are talking about the subject of security, reliability comes into this. And what happens every so often is certain things happen to individuals which create the external social environment, or cause the external social environment to turn against you. And then they will betray you if they think that you have betrayed them. And if you have your own ideas about something which doesn't correspond with their ideas, then they will give you difficulty for that. And so you have, in a way, you have compromised your integrity by not realizing how powerful these influences are, which begin from childhood and which may not correspond with your conscience. And this is a very interesting phenomenon. If you have a very clear conscience and you understand what's right and wrong, and you have your own set of values which come from the inside, and they don't correspond with the people around you, then you will find yourself marginalized. And so your relationship with these powerful influences becomes not so comfortable. This can happen in the work environment. I was looking at some documentaries about what happens to people in work environments that are toxic if they find themselves being really harmed by those toxic environments. And there's a lot of toxic work environments, which could be in the corporate sector, or it could be in other organizations, or it could be in a family business, or any kind of work environment. There is a potential for there to be quite a toxic environment. And if you try to protect yourself, or flag it up, or make changes, then you may find yourself again marginalized. So all these things to do with security or perceived security are also connected with power. If you are in a position of power, then you are the one who influences the people around you, and because you're in a position of power, if they don't go along with your way of doing things, you have a possibility of putting pressure on them to do that, and then they feel a little bit obligated plus insecure. And so this sense of insecurity happens really quite subtly, and it may develop slowly, and then you may not feel comfortable, you may not feel secure, and when people feel insecure, then it makes them feel afraid, and that creates stress, and that makes a person more weak, and that can have a health effect, or it can affect your home life if there's a problem in the work life, or you are somehow socially not considered okay, then you're marginalized, and all of this requires actually a lot of inner strength. So to me, the most important thing in terms of security, if you really want to have 100% security, then you have to have a very, very good and strong relationship with yourself. And that means you must be very conscious of your value and your honor, which has nothing to do with the people, the circumstances, the surroundings, but it has everything to do with who you are as an individual. And of course, in spiritual practice, the individual is defined as a spiritual being. And whatever is going on the outside is defined as, a big movie, a big 3D movie that's going on with all these characters and all these situations. And one of the laws of spirituality that not everybody knows, but which is quite good to know, and that is that all places, people, and things, circumstances, situations, they arise, they persist for some time, and then they fade away, which means they're all very temporary. And when you want to have 100% security, then it means that your security cannot be derived from anything temporary, because when it's there, it's fine, and when it's not there, it's not fine. But yourself is always there. So your relationship with yourself is crucial to this deep, powerful internal sense of, I know who I am, whether I'm alive or dead, or healthy or sick, or doing well or not doing well, all that is secondary. And this really powerful sense of your relationship with yourself is supplemented by and sourced by and supported by your spirituality, which means your relationship with the divine. And your relationship with the divine is permanent. Just as yourself is permanent, so also the Supreme Being, God, the Supreme Soul, that's permanent, and your relationship with that one is permanent. Whether you're alive or dead, whether you're old or young, whether you're healthy or sick, whether people love you or hate you, makes no difference whatsoever to any of it. Which means that you're operating from a completely different platform from everyone else. But it's a very, very powerful place to be, because you cannot be taken away from yourself by external influences, which is very good because it means you cannot be corrupted. People get corrupted by four things. Maybe you don't know this, but it's kind of interesting. And this is a little acronym called MICE, M-I-C-E. So M is money, I is ideology, beliefs, C is compromise, and E is ego. So the extent to which any of these mice are running around in your soul, to that extent, you can be taken down. You can be bought. You can be corrupted. You can be pressured and forced to do what you don't want to do or what is against your conscience. But if you are mouse free, then that's an independent human being. And I think there's quite an interesting connection between being free and independent and being secure. And maybe other people seeing you as completely without any of the props that everybody else has to have to make sure that they feel secure, they've got money, their ego is being nicely massaged, they subscribe to an ideology that everybody thinks is wonderful, marvelous, and fantastic, and that they there isn't anything that could compromise them. They don't have any detectable secrets. Of course, everybody has some or another secrets that they don't want anybody to know. But I think that our spiritual practice and meditation and focus, continuous focus on the self, focus on developing and cultivating this relationship with the Supreme Being, the Divine, and operating in such a way that you always keep yourself independent from materially perceived reality. And that's quite a trick to do that, because materially perceived reality is reality. But when you are practicing to be detached, to be independent and free, to consider yourself an actor, you come into different circumstances, you play suitably the role, knowing that it's short term, then you will never try to lean on something which could fall away or die or disappear or break apart. No. So you're not dependent on your body. You're not dependent on your culture. You're not dependent on there being all the expected things like clement weather and all the gas and electricity and water and food in the shops and petrol and everything. You can manage if those things are not there for one reason or another. Because what we're seeing more and more is relationships break up, you lose your job suddenly, people die, something may happen where you don't look good, even though you may not have done anything wrong, but something gets thrown at you or thrown on you, or you get false accusations or character assassination. There are so many things that can happen. And as long as you are not really strong in yourself and really strong in your clean, clear conscience and really strong in your connection with the divine, then you can be very much affected by those things which makes you feel very insecure. When a person feels insecure, they're weak. When a person feels secure based on these internal attributes, they're strong. And when you're clean, even if somebody is really against you, you can stand up to it. If you're not clean, if you've got anything that, you can be corrupted with or by, then you can't stand up to it. So the purity is really key. And people don't really talk very much about purity, but purity, integrity, independence, these really help you to be totally yourself in good situations, bad situations. They love you, they hate you, they look up to you, they look down on you. Whatever is going on from the outside, you have enough inner clarity and strength to be really independent of it. And you say, oh, okay, well, that's good. Have a nice day. Keep your smile. So I will stop there, and I think that some of you may have some questions or comments. Thank you very much.
So maybe you would like to say just a few more words about clean and clear consciousness and how that can support our security in any conditions.
Yes, I make a difference between conscience and consciousness. So here I'm really talking about conscience. And conscience is very connected with what we call in Raj Yoga as the intellect. The mind does not differentiate between right and wrong, yes or no. It just takes anything and everything in and enjoys it. But the conscience or intellect will do a triage. What is useful, useless, what is good, what is not good, what's real, what's not real, what's relevant, what's not relevant, and make a lot of choices. Now, conscience is an extraordinary instrument, and the problem for many people is when you go against the voice of conscience, then your conscience loses functionality. And then you start to betray yourself. So having a clean, clear conscience is probably the greatest weapon. I call it a weapon. It's a non-violent weapon, but it's a very, very good instrument to keep yourself protected from efforts of others to make you compromise yourself. And you remember when I talked about the mice? One is money. People want money, or they can be corrupted with money. And the second one is ideology. A lot of people can get quite fanatical and then do things on the basis of that, which may not, and all of these may not be according to conscience, you see. But then compromise is a very dangerous one, because when you go against your conscience, you have compromised yourself. And then, of course, the other one is the ego. And people do a lot of things out of ego, which are totally against conscience. So if you have a clean, clear conscience, then the mice or rats cannot get you. And that means that you will not do anything that is against your principles. And your principles are very clear. What is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false, what is real, what is unreal. You have a natural capacity to detect it. But when you go against your conscience, you lose that natural capacity. So almost everyone, I would say, operates partially on the basis of conscience, but it's very much mixed with many things that are done against conscience, because you find yourself in situation, if you do the right thing, you may lose your job. If you do the right thing, you may lose your close, intimate relationships. If you do the right thing, other people will keep you at a distance because they will feel uncomfortable around you because they don't follow their conscience. And so a person with a clean conscience, I also mentioned the word independent. So independent means that you are able to be alone. And not a lot of people can be alone. The normal thing for a human being is to be in a couple, in a group, in a family. And a person who's absolutely clean and clear must also have the ability to be alone, because there are times when you are all by yourself and everyone else is against you. And that may not last very long, but however long it lasts, you have to be able to manage to be on your own with opposition. And in life, there are always going to be moments of opposition. And if you are really perturbed about strong opposition, then they know that you're weak. But if you're not, and if you can handle being alone, and you're true to yourself, true to your conscience, you are a very strong person. And people like this are actually very valuable in society, because they become like the wind, which says, go this way. This is a good way to go. Yeah.
That would mean a very high level of introversion, to be able to listen only to that voice and only to maybe the connection with the divine. How can we attain that? How can we truly live in that space?
Well, I think it's a matter of priority. If you're if being true to yourself is your highest value, and you will not betray yourself, then that's your key principle that you won't go against. And all you have to do is have that. And people will do anything to break that, but don't break, because it really makes you invincible.
And we'd just like to clarify that I believe you said, I no longer search for security, or I'm no longer looking for security. What does it mean that we are no longer looking for that security in the outer world, if that is the correct understanding?
I think people, they're looking for insurance. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of being attacked? Are you afraid of being killed? Are you afraid of pain? Are you afraid of being abandoned? Are you afraid of being insulted? Are you afraid of losing face? All the various things that you could be afraid of. That means somebody has power over you. And your security is determined by you trying to find a way to make sure that none of those things can happen. You see, so people who are very, very insecure, they have lots of, ego masks to protect themselves, or money, or position or all sorts of things because they don't feel secure if they don't have those things. But any of those things can be taken away anytime. And if you're just you and you're clear that you're clean and that you have value, and even if you're not appreciated, it doesn't matter because you're not here for the purpose of getting appreciated. This is another aspect that's quite useful is what is my purpose? To have that clear in your mind. What is the purpose of me? And if you have that clear and you know what is your purpose, then you go for it because what people think about it is secondary. If you don't have a purpose and you don't know what your purpose is, then you turn yourself over to other people who will use you for their purposes, or they will tell you what your purpose is if it is convenient to them. And in that way, you've betrayed yourself. And these things are really very, very important. A lot of commerce is based on people's insecurities, and that because we know you're insecure, we know you need to have a very special type of telephone, much more objects than you need, much more clothes than you need, a better car than you need, because these are status symbols. And, all of this can erode your financial security because you are using things that you don't need for something that they don't provide and coming under an illusion.
How do we know that that voice is not corrupt by now? And how do we know that the purpose it's a good one?
Well, if you have gone against your conscience a lot, it will stop talking to you. So then you've lost a really reliable and good friend. And then you have to depend on other people, which are not dependable. So how you know you have a good conscience is because you're talking to it. And if you go against it, I mean, everybody has a conscience, but mostly their conscience is not reliable because they have broken it. They've betrayed it. They have disregarded it. And so, like any good friend, it'll say, okay, if you want to do that, see you later. And then you effectively lost it. And in terms of purpose, I mean, what is your purpose? So who wants to be a millionaire? Is that your purpose? Okay, if that's your purpose, enjoy it, but everybody has a purpose that they have to discern. I think a lot of it has to do with understanding yourself. Because if you can articulate what you feel your purpose is, and when you analyze yourself as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, as an older person, have you changed your purpose, or has your purpose remained like that all the time? Have you been true to yourself? Has your track been straight? And if it has, it's so easy because you're very clear with yourself. Now, not everybody is that clear. And a lot of people will go on a track that's kind of laid out for them by their parents, their teachers, their religious, leaders. And they will accept a purpose that's given to them by somebody else. And one fine day they will wake up and say, well, I don't think that's really my purpose. There's another purpose. And then they may get in contact with that, and then that's their real purpose, as opposed to a purpose that's been proposed to them by external people, but that may not be exactly your purpose, and you find it. I think also, being with yourself, spending time alone, meditating, dealing with life, and being on your own, dealing with life, and not having support systems, or not relying totally on your support systems. If they're there, it's great, but if they're not there, you're not undone, because you know to take care of yourself. And I think also, in Raj Yoga, we talk a lot about karma. So if your karma is very clean and very accurate, that's a huge force that goes with you. That gives you plenty of security. And that's because it is a law that really needs to be understood. So if you have pure action, thought, words, interpretation, feeling, everything is right, then the consequences of that will be that life will be good to you. And that means you understand what it means to be a human being, and you understand what is life. It may not be easy, but you understand it.
Young people especially can be attracted by these temporary values, by what is a false purpose, and they want to be accepted, they want to have friends. Is there any good position to start from with anyone in education, maybe how to inculcate, if you want to share, if anyone is interested to hear, to listen, if you want to share, what would be the best way to go in and share about true values, true purpose, the voice of conscience?
Well, it really depends on who you are as an individual. Every single one of us started off young, right? Nobody arrived on earth as an adult. And so if you do not go through whatever your explorations and experiments are, you don't know anything. So, of course, people do get influenced, but the main problem is that a young person needs love from the beginning of their life, from their parents and their family, and they need structure. And if you have that, everything is fine. The problem is most people arrive in dysfunctional families. They are not loved, and so then this creates a search for love outside the family environment, and there they get into trouble. So this is a real key thing. And the problem is that people who get married and have children, they have many problems, many compromising factors. They don't really know how to love. The world's karmic condition at the moment is catastrophic. And so this is why a very good relationship to cultivate is your relationship with the Supreme Being, with God, because God is the only one who's not dysfunctional. And if you, doesn't matter how dysfunctional you are, but you have a relationship with one who's not dysfunctional, then that gives you a great deal to work with in your relationship with all kinds of difficult people, difficult situations, and so on. So the problem is that people don't know very much about God, or what is God, where is God, what is God like, what does God stand for, etc., etc. But your conscience can recognize. And so your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your conscience, and having these being true to yourself as a high priority, that will get you close to God, and that will give you what you need to handle the world, good, bad, or indifferent. And so that is a very, very good recipe for not just surviving, but thriving in a social, political, environmental circumstance which is challenging.
Would you like to explain in a few words, maybe, what is your best method that you can share with us, how we can connect with God in the best possible and simplest way?
You have to think about two things. Who am I? Who am I? What am I? And we can know in a general way you're a spiritual being, no doubt, but just really try and connect with your individual self, this being who is full of qualities and capabilities, but who is spiritually a little depleted or very depleted. So what do you need is spiritual power. What you need is spiritual light. And that you can only get from God. You can only get from that source. And what's in the way of connecting with God is your consciousness of yourself in material terms. Thinking of yourself as your body, your role, your gender, your nationality, your culture, and just go deep beyond all of that to arrive at your essence, the light, the soul, and just be that. Think about that this essence is eternal and immortal, and it's you. And that all the things in the material world are temporary. They appear, they stay for a bit, they disappear. Everything is like that. It takes you to another level beyond the appearance and disappearance of everything to a higher power, a source, a force that is behind all that. This is your connection. This is your support. This is where you get your power from. This is security. And there is a saying, take refuge in me alone. This connection is outside of life and death. Outside of good times and bad times. This is your anchor. This is the light. And mentally, you're connected. You've understood what this is. Once you're connected, draw in the energy. Take as much as you can. The only thing missing in your existence is this power and light, this energy mixed of love and purity, wisdom, clarity, peace, and great power. Then you find yourself in stillness and silence. And you understand that everything is as it is. Let it be. You're comfortable with yourself. You're comfortable with the divine. You're okay with whatever's going on, without compromising yourself. Shanti.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So thank you so much once again for such a wealth of knowledge and experience.